Wow, what a story. It's an amazing hyperbaric story.
I had grade 3 tear of my MCL. I had bursitis. My leg was literally double in size. I had my first world title fight in Strikeforce in about 3 weeks. You can change people's perspective if you just work hard and you don't segregate yourself.
Hyperbarics is definitely part of that picture.
I didn't know that this was something I could have in my home. I didn't know that it was accessible otherwise. I know how much hyperbarics can make a difference in people's lives. This is the fountain of youth. Like, this is the magic healing modality that you've probably been looking for.
Chamber really helps. I do it almost religiously. Welcome to Hyperbaric Living podcast, and I'm your host, Dr.Masha. Today, I'd like to introduce you to a very special person, Miesha Tate. Misha is a former UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. She's also a former Strikeforce Women's Bantamweight Champion, and she's a co-founder at Desert Moon Wellness Center. Welcome to the show, Misha. Really glad to have you with me today.
Dr. Masha, it is really an honor to be here talking with you today, especially about something I'm so passionate about, hyperbarics. I've been following your podcast for quite some time, and it's so cool to be here. So I'm very excited for what we have in store.
Thank you. I'm honored, and I'm really excited for my listeners because today we're going to learn a lot. Let's start from your story. It's really exciting, and I'm sure people know you and they know where you came from and your story, but maybe short version for those in Europe, because your listeners and your followers in US sure know you, but here in Europe, maybe some people don't.
Absolutely. So I got into sports at a very young age. I started wrestling when I was in high school, and there was not a female wrestling team, so I actually had joined the boys wrestling team in high school. Wrestled all 4 years. Kind of because of that, I sort of stumbled across MMA in college and just took a chance. I started fighting and found out that I loved it. And from there, I'm from Washington State in the US, and I moved to California to train with a better team, and my career just continued to progress. So I started, I'm gonna date myself, back when women's MMA just was pretty unheard of. It was definitely kind of a spectacle of the fight card. It would be lucky to have one female fight, and you'd usually hear pretty obnoxious comments, kind of downgrading the women. And that's how I got my start. We were really fighting for breadcrumbs. And so I'm really grateful that I have such an elaborate perspective. Not very many people start at that point and are still fighting in the UFC. And having been a former world champion, really reaching the pinnacle of the sport, it's just been an incredible journey. And hyperbarics has been a huge part of keeping me on the market as a fighter.
We'll get to hyperbarics because that's what the show is about. But I wanted to ask a question. Now looking back, what do you think was the most difficult moment in this journey? What's the difficult part about it?
The most difficult time period was when I first started in MMA, which was in late 2005, early 2006. And it was a similar battle that I fought in wrestling, was to just get acceptance, even to just be acknowledged and, treated like anybody else on the mat. It just was not common for women to train in combat sports. And that meant we had to train with men. And a lot of times men just couldn't wrap their head around why a woman would be taking up space on their mat. So it was always an uphill battle. But one thing I learned because of that is that you can change people's perspective if you just work hard and you don't segregate yourself. So that's what I did. I just kept my nose to the grindstone. I treated myself just like one of the guys, and eventually the guys started to treat me just like one of the guys. And, it became like, instead of wanting to get rid of me on the team, like accepting me like a sister on the team or like a brother, you know what I mean, on the team. So that was always the challenge as I transitioned from wrestling, and then I transitioned into MMA, a full-on combat sport. Some people just struggled to accept me. So it was a challenge at first.
In my understanding, these sports make participants really prone to injuries. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's very correct. So I do think it's a safer sport for head trauma overall than boxing or even American football because we deliver damage over the entire body. It's not just about head hunting, and we are trained to see the impact coming. Now, we don't always see it coming, right? That's when you get knockouts and you get surprised. But in football and something, when you're in a helmet and you're limited vision and somebody hits you out of nowhere, I mean, that kind of CTE and TBI, like traumatic brain injury that we see from that, I think, and then they send them right back out into the game and they continue compiling concussions. Okay, so back to MMA. When we get a major concussion, the fight's over, it's done. We're not going back in there. We're going to start working on recovery. But absolutely, I mean, from head to toe, we also train in submission arts. So we're constantly wreaking havoc on our elbows, on our knees, on our ankles, on our necks, on our spines, on our back. So yeah, we do disperse the damage over the whole body, but there's plenty of instances where, we're injured. I would say 98% of the time we go into a fight or a competition with at least something wrong.
And what is the normal recovery program for an MMA fighter? Like, what does it include?
So are you talking just like post-fight, or are you just talking about on the regular?
I'm talking post-fight, I'm talking maintenance, and I'm talking if, God forbid, something happens, more of a major injury.
We don't have a specific protocol that's laid out. Everybody's individual. We are all independent contractors and we come from all different parts of the world globally. So it depends what guidance they're under, what kind of forethought they have put into their future. And what I've found is that a lot of times young MMA fighters don't think that far into the future. And I'm here to kind of wave the flag and say, like, hey, at some point you're going to be 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. Let's get ahead of the curve. Like, let's take care of you now. Let's keep you healthy and running well. So I have seen the sport take an overall turn, and like most fighters are not doing hard sparring 6 days a week. Now, when we first started all this, pre-2000s, some of these guys were just approaching the sport like that's all we need to do is fight each other and we'll be ready for a fight, but they just took so much damage. So with science and education and more medical professionals getting into the sport and also people who have been in it retiring and speaking out, we're seeing now that fighters are being more invested in their health and wellness before they get to a point where they're so badly damaged that they're really suffering.
And how did you get introduced to hyperbarics? Was it because of the injury? It's just my guess. Really, I don't know. I'm like everybody else here guessing. Yeah?
Yes, actually, you are correct. I had a grade 3 tear of my MCL, and I had bursitis. My leg was literally double in size. I could barely bend it. And I was in a lot of pain and very motivated to fix it because I had my first world title fight in Strikeforce in about 3 weeks. So I was very desperate to get my knee fixed, and somebody recommended hyperbarics. Had no clue what it was, but I said, I'll try anything. So I went in, they stick you in this tube with pure oxygen, and it was a medical grade 1, so it was not a soft shell, but it's one that you can't bring any electronics in, so you watch TV, and I think it was about a 90-minute session. And my jaw hit the floor when I got out of that chamber, and I saw that my knee was it felt like it was majorly down in the swelling, like almost back to normal. So I was like, I have no idea what this is, but this is crazy, and I can't believe that my knee looks like this. And I know that's not always the experience, right? I've had injuries before that's like, okay, it's not magically disappearing the swelling, but for whatever reason, that was my experience the first time, and being able to really see the difference after one treatment. Now, the swelling came back. By the next day, it was back again. But every day that I would go, I would notice this huge decrease in the inflammation. And the inflammation, right, as you probably know, is just the body's healing process. So the hyperbaric was helping to get the waste out and allow my body to put new resources in that area. And so each time it would kind of help me to do that. And I was able to fight, and I won my first world championship, and I was sold. I was like, that was saved my life. It was a saving grace. I don't know how I would have it couldn't happen. I wouldn't have been able to compete with that injury. And having a grade 3 tear of the MCL, to have about 2 weeks of hyperbaric training once a day, I think the sessions were 90 minutes, I was blown away that I was able to actually get inside the cage and compete and do well and win. So I've been a huge fan ever since then.
Wow, what a story. It's an amazing hyperbaric story. Do you remember how many sessions you got?
It was about 2 weeks worth. Yeah, it was about 2 weeks, and it was one time a day. And it just every time had me feeling better and better, more optimistic and hopeful. So I went religiously until I had to fly out for my fight. And it was enough. It was enough to get me through the fight.
Wow. That's amazing. So that was 2011, right? You said. So that's like 11 years ago. And since then you were using it for maintenance or when the injury would occur?
So I didn't get access to another hyperbaric chamber. Mind you, I didn't know that this was something I could have in my home. In 2011, I mean, I thought it's like you go to a medical facility and they treat you. I didn't know that it was accessible otherwise. So I didn't have one until about 2015. I was reached out to someone about a sponsorship with a hyperbaric chamber, and I was like, yes, like I haven't heard about that since I had this crazy injury. Like I didn't know I could have one in my home. Absolutely. What do you need me to do to get this in my house? And so I was able to get the Viteris that you actually probably see peeking over the corner there behind me, for those of you that are watching it on the video.
But that's not the same one you got in 2015, right? That's the newer.
No, this is the original. That's the
original. Oh my God, guys.
Yeah, the case that has been updated, like the little cover on the outside, that is newer. But no, that's my original one. So that's had a lot of mileage. And a little off topic here, we moved to Singapore for about a year and a half. And this chamber, rather than letting it collect dust, we actually gave it to some friends of ours whose son had brain cancer. And he used it religiously and was able to make a full recovery, and also says like he really feels like he knows that hyperbarics was incredibly helpful in healing him and his injuries. So
wow,
it's very
Misha,
powerful.
I have goosebumps.
I know.
Yeah, it's not the air conditioner. It's the stories. Oh my God. Wow, guys, this is the magic. You have the magic chamber. No, I'm joking. Any chamber can do that.
I know. But, just having that tool and resource to help people, that's why this has been such a big dream come true. I know we'll probably get to Desert Moon Wellness and opening that. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I know from firsthand experience and multiple secondhand experiences how much hyperbarics can make a difference in people's lives. So I just want to continue to spread the word and get it out there and let people know, like, this is the fountain of youth. Like, this is the magic healing modality that you've probably been looking for. And I just think it can do amazing things. I know it can do amazing things.
I absolutely agree. Misha, and when you got the chamber in 2015, so you had your own hyperbaric unit in your home, were you using it all the time or in preparation for fight? Like, how did it work for you?
I would definitely use it more in preparation for fights, but I did use it fairly regularly. Not every day. I would say I would average once a week. If I wasn't in a training camp, I would just get in there once a week. But that was usually my protocol, like more in preparation for training. And then you go into vacation mode, and we're humans. We tend to not focus on our recovery as much. We're not always on top of it. I'm totally guilty of it. I'm not above it. So I've been there. But I also, at that time, only was drawing off my one experience. I thought this will help me in a major injury. So if I don't have a major injury, maybe I don't need to use it as much, maybe little dings and nicks. But I had no idea the science beyond that. I hadn't really wrapped my head around all the healing modalities that a hyperbaric chamber can offer. I didn't know that at that time.
And have you had major injuries since 2015?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've had a laceration that was pretty nasty back in November, and using the hyperbaric religiously at that point, pre and post fight, I was like completely healed, so where you couldn't even tell that I had ever had a laceration. It's right here.
I remember from your photos, yeah.
Inside of a week. Now I do have to credit a little bit to red light as well. I obviously use that, and I use the Mark Pro, but without a doubt, I know that the hyperbaric had large part to do with my fast healing and recovery. And I live in Las Vegas now, so my fight was in Las Vegas. So I was like literally in that chamber the night before my fight, the day of my fight. Right after I know you can't recommend this, but I did actually sleep in my chamber the night after my fight. I was so tired, I just stayed in there the whole night, not with oxygen, just ambient air, under low pressure. But I stayed in there, and I know that it had a lot to do with making my recovery so speedy, just the treatments altogether.
I know maybe it wouldn't be that easy to tell, but if you analyze it and if you look back, what benefits do you attribute to using hyperbaric chamber? Because I know you're also using other therapies and doing other things, but what do you think is really due to you using the chamber? Like mental focus?
Clarity. So I've been in a sport where concussions and head trauma are part of what I do. We try to minimize as much as possible, but it is something that I'm exposed to and have the potential risk of accumulating, damage in that way on a regular basis. And I remember at a point where when I was like in Singapore, for example, and I wasn't in a chamber for, a year and a half, 2 years almost, the focus, it's huge. I encourage anybody who gets in a hyperbaric chamber for the first time and maybe does a protocol, just take a note each time, because sometimes it's hard to notice those small changes if you don't really take time to notice. But I have, and I remember a time where I was very forgetful. I would put my key, I was always losing my keys. I was always misplacing my phone. I had too many things to do. That's part of the problem. But the other thing was that I just lacked the ability to have the focus and be in the moment. That was probably the biggest thing that I noticed, is like when I am in the chamber regularly, I honestly feel like my mental clarity, it's way better. It's a lot better. And I'm able to be more present and more in the moment for my children, for myself, for my husband. And also it's a lot less distressing when you're not constantly forgetting and losing things. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's much better when I'm in the chamber regularly.
I know exactly what you mean. That's why I suffer from that as well. And chamber really helps. I do it almost religiously. I get in because otherwise the age is taking its toll. I'm not old or anything like that, but you notice with every decade of your life, you notice that things are slowing down. And I think hyperbaric chamber really helps me to stay on top of things.
Yes.
Now I'd like to ask you about Desert Moon Wellness. It's an amazing concept. It's a wellness clinic. All the information will be in the podcast description, guys. It's in Vegas. It's state of art. Like, I've seen the photos, videos. Really, I love the design. I know clinic is more about treatments, but design is important. It's so cool. Can you tell me, like, how was this idea born and what this place is about?
I have to give the credit primarily to my co-founder, Janelle Aedizone. She has been in the business of hyperbarics for many years. She had this vision of opening a facility and helping people, and I think that's been one of her missions for a very long time. And just to give a little background history on Janelle and I, we've been friends for 7 or 8 years. She was actually in my doula for the birth of my first child. She was friend first, and just somebody that I love her energy. I love how she connects with people. She's a very kind person, and I know she's very passionate about helping people. So she came to me and said, hey, I want to work for myself and I want to help people. Do you want to join? I'm like, show me where to sign, girl. Like, I'm ready. Let's do this. And then we partnered also with Amy Bass, who is our medical director and nurse practitioner. And together, I think we make a pretty amazing team. So we're a small business, we're female owned, and we're on a mission to help people to experience what their individual 100 feels like. So many people, I think, slowly decline, and they are told that that's just part of getting old. That's just part of aging. And I would like to debunk that. I don't think it has to be. I believe with hyperbarics and with taking time for yourself to invest in yourself, having self-love, having self-awareness, you not at your best means nobody gets you at your best. You don't get you at your best and nobody else gets you at your best. So I think like they say when you're flying, like put your own mask on first. Why is that? Because if you pass out, you can't help anybody else, right? Okay, it's the same thing with like taking 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day if it's needed to invest in yourself now and yourself in your future. And that's also an investment that pays dividends to your family and your friends and those people around you who you want to help serve, right? So that is our goal, is to help people remember and get back to a point, either back to a point or beyond the point maybe that they've ever reached with these wellness modalities. And we offer hyperbarics, we offer red light therapy, IV infusions. We also do food allergy and sensitivity testing, and brain tap and neural check, which are fascinating to see. Every single person we've had come in the front door has shown an improvement when we test their neural check, which is based on the HRV, and they test and it will tell us so much information about how their autonomic nervous system is working, how their parasympathetic and sympathetic, and if there's like if something's working too hard. Sometimes we get in this fight or flight mode, we get really busy and we're doing so many things that we don't realize, like in survival mode, like we need to take a breath and like calm down for a second, get out of that mode. So with all of our modalities, we've been able to show people and help people progress, and it's been just an amazing journey, not only witnessing mine, but witnessing the people who come in our door and how we're able to help them.
Oh, it's so rewarding to see people get better. It is really rewarding. Misha, who is your typical client at the clinic? Like what kind of people come and use your services?
Well, what we find is usually people who are ready to invest in themselves. And when I say that, a lot of times it's people who are to the point where they have to. People will push themselves. I don't know why this is. I don't know why it's human nature to not acknowledge that you're not okay until you're really not okay. So a lot of times we get people, now mind you, we at this point have only been open about 8 weeks. But at this point, we're having people come in who have serious back injuries, someone who passed out and hit her jaw, broke her jaw. So she's in there, trying to recover from that. We had one amazing client who had a breast and stomach surgery, and she had necrosis of the nipple. I mean, it had turned completely black within 24 hours after the surgery. And the surgeon was telling her, like, we are going to have to shave it off. And her husband's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, there has to be another option. There has to be. And kept pressing and pressing and pressing. And finally, it dawned on him to recommend hyperbarics and refer to us, as Amy was his prior nurse practitioner. So there was the connection. And she came to us and we were able to save the nipple. We got her in, and within one treatment, she had blood flow back in the nipple and clear pink coloring as opposed to just the black. And she came every day. She was very diligent. She used the red light, and she was so grateful, and she cried on our shoulders and she hugged us and she thanked us. And it was just, it's those things, right, that you want to be a part of. Like, it's so fulfilling and it's so rewarding to make a difference in somebody's life. So yeah, we have seen a lot of people who are there because they maybe feel like they don't have another option in there to that breaking point. But what I would like to do is get more people in to prevent that from happening to these people. It sucks to be at the point where you're down and out and you're forced to do it. I would like to see more people be a little bit more, proactive in their health and wellness.
I'm here with you. I really think that prevention is the best cure. We can prevent so many diseases. Guys, just take the right steps, and hyperbarics is definitely part of that picture. And we can see that from the studies, all these longevity studies, disease prevention studies, but we can also see from experience, from patients, because I think these are our best teachers. When you see people get better and you see, okay, this works. People get better, their heart variability is better, and heart variability is a measure that we use to see how well a person can handle stress, for example. So when you see all these markers improve, we know that we are preventing future disease. Prevention is a difficult field, because it's really difficult to feel like, how do you feel that you're preventing something? But we know this from biomarkers that are changing, from sleep that's improving and all these other things. I'm here with you. I wish people would really pay more attention to their health.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to get my mom in and to do the neural check on her. And what's so fascinating about the neural check, a lot of people get obsessed about age, right? We obsess about age as a general human thing. We concern ourselves with it. So the neural check actually tells you your biological age versus what your real age is, and also gives you information on about how healthy you are compared to someone who is actually your age. And it's not meant to be stressful. It's just information. But what we've seen with every person is, like, once they start treating with us, there is improvement. They get younger. Their biological age improves. Like, their nervous system balance out. I mean, their brain activity, the spine, the health of the spine, and everything. So it's so fun to witness that. And it's nice to see, like, that at least our family and friends, like, we are proactively going after them and, like, get your butt here, get in the chamber, because we're not waiting for you to be, on your deathbed before we're doing something about your health. And so that's been really positive to see too.
Absolutely. If people want to find you, where can they find this clinic? Because I'm sure people in Vegas area who are listening, and also people around, because you can travel really and get treatments done, right? How can they find you?
Well, if you're driving by, if you just want to come say hello, we're right off the 215 by the IKEA. I think everybody knows where the IKEA is in Las Vegas. But if you're not from here, you can obviously visit our website, desertmoonwellness.com. But we love it if you reach out directly. Like, get on our Instagram, it's Desert Moon Wellness LV, or on our Facebook, or give us a call, whatever works for you. Like, email us. We want to have human to human interaction. Like, we want to help you on your personal journey, because we're all so vastly different in not only our starting point, but where we want to go, what you want to accomplish. Your goals are going to vary. So we're here to help and support that. I think between the three of us, myself being a professional athlete, and Amy being a medical, in the medical field, and Janelle just being a wealth of knowledge, and her credentials go miles long. I couldn't list them in this podcast if I tried. We can help you. We can absolutely support you on your wellness journey.
I really like your mission, guys. And by the way, Janelle was on my podcast, I think 6 months or so ago, and we talked about hyperbarics and women's health and how to use hyperbaric chamber during pregnancy and postpartum. Have you used your chamber during pregnancy, Misha?
No, I didn't use my chamber during pregnancy. I wasn't sure on how or protocols. I wasn't educated enough to feel comfortable. We may have another baby, and if we do, I absolutely will be in the chamber. I feel like it's like with anything. If you haven't been doing it and you're now pregnant, probably recommend don't start. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but like, that's just my thing. Like, if you haven't been, but if you are doing it before and you want to continue, just like if you're working out and exercise and everything, we're finding out now, like, women don't need to be handicapped when they're pregnant. I think we've been finding that out for a while, but it's like finally coming around, like, hey, this is not a disability. Like, we're just pregnant, but we can pretty much do everything that we did before being pregnant. Yeah, granted, you're doing those things prior. So since I'm regularly in the chamber, I would absolutely find it, I think, beneficial for myself and my growing baby. And I would absolutely use it postpartum too. And I do take my children in there with me at times, I'll bring them into the chamber and we'll just hang out and we'll play, or, you name it. So they're used to it too. And I'm so glad that I can expose them to this early in life.
Yeah, I've heard this a lot from mothers who are using hyperbarics. It's the same phrase, I am so happy that I can give that to them at such an early age. You're not the first one to say it. It's quite interesting because we really want to give our children the best that we can give them. So we feel that hyperbarics is something that would really benefit their health and make them stronger and more resilient. Pregnancy and hyperbarics is a topic for another conversation. It's huge, but guys, if you're interested, make sure to listen to the episode with Janelle, because she used hyperbarics during her pregnancy. It's quite an interesting story. But you're so right, Misha. It's a gray area, especially with pregnant women. We want to take it on a cautious side. And if a pregnant woman uses a hyperbaric chamber, I always suggest that they do it under the supervision of a hyperbaric practitioner.
Yes, I totally agree. But I think there is a huge benefit in doing that. So if you're interested, I say go for it. And just minimize risk. I mean, there's all different levels that you can treat in hyperbarics too. I'm sure your listeners are probably already aware of that, but for anybody who's not, I mean, there are, you can treat at a very low pressure, or you can increase that pressure. You can increase the oxygen. And we see that happen usually for people who are really need it, like people who are suffering from some maybe like near death or something else, or neuropathy, those kinds of things that might treat a little higher. But if you're just looking to like get a maintenance or benefit, or you're pregnant, like you can treat at a lower pressure and minimize risk.
And at your clinic, you have different pressure settings, right? So you are treating at different levels at your clinic.
Absolutely.
And also, if people who are going to your clinic, if they decide to purchase a hyperbaric chamber for their home use, you can assist them.
Oh, absolutely. Janelle and Corey, her husband, are incredible. They offer like a very high-end white glove delivery service setup, explain everything to you. So we are here to support you, whether it's in our clinic or if you want it at home. Like, I'm not opposed. I mean, I love the fact that I have one here. After I put the kids to sleep, I'll get in it for an hour and then I'll head upstairs to bed for myself. And I just think, in a busy world, sometimes convenience is key. So however we can best support people who want to seek that out, like we can do that.
Misha, thank you so much for taking your time and, explaining everything and telling us your story and your hyperbaric story, because that's what people want to know. Okay, did she use hyperbarics? Did it help her? How she used it? What is she doing now? So I hope people got their answers today. And if you're interested, you can go to your Instagram page, right? Guys, whoever. And if you think that somebody can benefit from this information, for example, you have a friend in Vegas or in area, send them a link to this episode, guys, and so they can go and check out the clinic. And Misha, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. And it's just so much fun talking to you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Masha. I love what you do. It's great to see other women leading a charge for wellness, and you are definitely at the head of that. So we appreciate you, and thank you for having me on and helping to spread the word of what we're doing here in Las Vegas. And hopefully we'll continue to spread throughout the U.S. We want to open more facilities and, continue to help people be well.
Yes, I want to wish you good luck with everything you do.
Thank you.